All right, welcome everyone. Last time we were all here, I was putting fruit into these jars and I was doing my secondary fermentation of mead. Well, the fermentation's all done. There's barely any bubbles coming up. In fact, when this thing was full percolating, the water never dropped below this point, but now the pressure inside the vessel is dropping so much that the water is actually starting to try to reach equilibrium again. So that's how we know the yeast is all done with most of that sugar in there. The yeast is still alive, well, mostly, but it's in that sort of terminal phase. So we're just going to go over basically how to do it. And at this phase, it's all about the racking to get rid of all the dead stuff that sits at the bottom. So I have this little LED light that I use for filming, and I made the mistake of doing everything in these little dark growler things. So the way to deal with that, I just shine that light up to there, and now I can actually kind of see through and see where the silt level is. So I'm going to lead you guys through how we're going to do racking from this. So we start with a clean one. I'm going to turn this off right here. Take this out. And at this point, we don't really need to worry so much about sterility or anything like that because it's pretty much all taken care of. And I like to just pump it out because we're trying to prevent ourselves from getting as much stuff from the bottom. So I don't want to just pour it. That's no bueno. Did I remember to clean this? Oh yeah, it's cleaned. And then I also like to use something that you are okay with spilling into. There. Oh no, I cleaned out all my cardboard. So this. There we go. So I get an old Amazon box. So obviously my system here is not exactly with the most professional thing in the world. So I take the barrel that I'm filling into because I'm using a siphon action. So I got my clip here, and I'm basically using this basket as like a little workstation. So I take that down in there. And then I almost forgot. So from going from secondary fermentation to our basically tertiary racking, this step only lasts for a day, and it's basically just to help settle out the dead yeast, because that dead yeast is going to give it a sour taste that isn't very good. So I got a little bit of water in there from when I washed it. Basically, I have a little filter, and I'm going to start with the coarse filter for this stage. Drop my siphon down in there. I found this little siphon kit on the Amazon that I've been liking. Problem is, I need to find a good way to kind of keep it all stable, make a little station, but in terms of just kind of making it work, this works just fine. So you can just use a little regular flashlight. So I like to just pin it up right there so I can see exactly inside where the tube is. I don't want to put the siphon tube too close to the bottom because then I'm going to disrupt that little layer of the dead. There's a specific term for it. I'm trying to remember, so I'll let people work that out and I'll put it in the comments. But that's good enough. So I get it going. And successful. The bottom layer is still there. And I just keep pumping it through. It's looking good. I can see the fruit layer is still at the top. I believe this is it's either the dates or the mango. Oh, my light falls off, so I can see it starting to take that bottom layer. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. Looks like the mango, judging by the chunks I'm getting there. Purges out the rest of the way, very nice. And then what I can do is I can kind of just lift it up, make sure I get every last little bit out. There we go. Clip that back on there. Put that there. So now, we're just gonna cap that. And then we're just going to let it sit there for a day. And then this stuff, most people just dump that out. But if you want, you can try to capture every last little bit of it. So what I do, if I want to capture every last little bit, I get a nice narrow tall glass like that. And then I just pour it all out. So you can see that mango is nice and decomposed. And we know that it was successful as well because I don't see any sort of fungus. Now, if I had left that fruit out in any other state other than fermentation, it would have rotted. So this really highlights the, I guess you could say, the storage, long-term implications of why mead is so cool. Because, by the way, this little mash right here, I can go and I can make that into a nice granola. So if you're making a nice granola, time that with when you transfer off your secondary fermentation fruit. Cherimoya, dates, mango, I can take this along with also my yuzu one, and I can literally make a mead granola with it because it's totally sterile. The texture is a little wonky. That's why you want to make it into a granola and then bake it, because it kind of helps with that. So yeah, there's that. So put this back in here so it doesn't drip everywhere. So now what's going to happen is this is going to settle, but there'll still be a little layer of juice, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to walk up with a straw and you'll be able to suck off that little bit at the top, and that way you get a little sample. So, wait, which one did I just pour into? So this is the one I just poured into. This is one that I took from the other day, and you can see it has barely any layer of schmutz at the bottom. So that shows that our racking is working, and it also is good enough that we're ready to bottle it as well. So now I'm going to change out my filter, because this is now a bottling run we're doing. We're not doing a finished secondary fermentation to get all the chunks out. And I forgot a little bit of a bowl, but what I can do is I can literally just use that. Voila, put that all in there. Use the more finer mesh. Comes with the little kit I got. Screw that on there. Now come to the beer bottles, and as long as you have a single lip variety, you can recycle these. So I've just been asking my friends, and then what you do is you tell your friends, for every 10 bottles you give me, I'll give you 1 bottle of mead. You'll never have to worry about buying bottles, because this is honestly the most expensive part of the entire mead making process, has been to bottle it. Everything else has been cheap, because I get the honey from the garden, I get the fruit from the garden, I get the water from my parents' place, and they have a nice well. The only thing I didn't have was the bottle. So now we're talking sustainability. So basically, I was able to get 5 gallons of mead made, and assuming I don't have to pay for these bottles and I recycle them, that is $1 to make 5 gallons of bottled mead at about 10% alcohol content. That's a really good deal right there. So now, ooh, I got some schmutz on this one. So if you really wanted to be professional about it, what we do is between each one, maybe we'd rinse it so there was no crossing of flavors. But what's nice about, actually, yeah, if you give me a little paper towel to wipe that off. That's what's nice about making stuff yourself, because I don't care if there's a little bit of mango mead taste mixed in with my date flavored mead taste. It's going to be, you know, I'm not even going to be able to notice. I defy someone to be able to taste 1 droplet of the mead variety. Because at the end of the day, this is all the same mead. It went through the same primary fermentation. So in essence, they'll both, at least I think they would about taste the same. Mead is a very complex flavor to it, I've come to find. So now, you're going to get your other bottles ready, because it's a siphon, and once that siphon gets going, it wants to keep going. So this bottle is a little more opaque and easy for me to see into. So once again, I get my tube maybe a 1/2 inch above that silt layer so I don't accidentally suck that in. And then games begin. And that looks nice and clear coming out. And I try to keep the flow nice and slow. We don't want to oxidize our mead too much. Uh-oh. And that's exactly what I mean. I totally jacked that up. So the problem is the siphon was going and I should have just let it fill natural, but I kind of rushed it. So it looks like I'm doing pretty good. So the silt layer is getting a little bit mixed up. I think what I'm going to do is I stop there because that was enough for example's sake. This is also where having a conical tank would be really cool. So I got my my mead skis right here. Now, a big thing that always comes up when I look online about mead and whatnot is, back sweetening. So if I wanted to back sweeten that, what I would have done is I would have added another tablespoon of sugar into this, let's say, right before. And then I would have added some sorbate. So for an example, here's some I bottled up the other day. One of these, I didn't put any extra sweetening. One of these, I added a teaspoon of honey and then a little bit, like a tenth of a teaspoon of potassium sorbate. And that sorbate's going to go in there and it's going to prevent the yeast from converting any more to the sugars, but hopefully not so much. It's basically to keep the glass from exploding and to keep it from eating up all the sweet taste, because otherwise you have a really dry mead. Because some people want their mead to be almost like some sort of like sparkling cider, where it's really sweet, it's still fermenting, still lots of sugars in there, and a lot of gas being produced. So if we were to jar this up as is and let it sit for a while, you'd have something nice and carbonated. That's basically how you would naturally carbonate your mead. Me, I prefer, I'm a true Englishman about my alcohol, so I don't mind it being a little bit flat. Hell, I'll even drink it warm. But we're gonna not do anything fancy today. We're just gonna jar it up as is so you guys see the most simplistic thing possible. I have this little canner thingamajiggy. Just retch it on there. Voila. And then you hand it to your cameraman as a thank you. And then this one will be for me. Now, my recommendation is once this step is here, you just let it basically clarify. You go and you put it in your pantry somewhere, and the longer you let it sit, the better it's going to taste. At this point, it's become wine. And for optimal results, and that's, you can see, it's actually fairly clear, which is a really good sign. It means mission successful. And even this, it looks cloudy right now, but give it some time, you'll start to see a nice little thin layer. And if there isn't much of a clear layer even after a day or so, even after putting it in the refrigerator, it means I did a good job of filtering off that top layer. But I don't think I did. I think what I need to do is I need to get an electric siphon pump. So that way I can just flip a switch and have a nice consistent stream going. So that'd be the way I'd like to sort of fix this thing. And then if you are still kind of getting the hang of it, you can see the little silt layer that I didn't quite get out before I jarred it. And that's why we do the extra racking. The extra racking basically gives you a more professional final product. And when someone goes to enjoy this, it's going to all of a sudden be cloudy. It's going to be a little sour because of that yeast layer. But that nice clear see-through, oh, that's what you want to go for in a finished mead product. If the mead isn't clear and it's still cloudy when you buy it, they either didn't do a good job separating out the dead yeast, or you have a very juvenile mead that hasn't had a chance to age yet. So if you really wanted to get snobby about your mead, those would be the things you would look for. And so I have a few tests going and whatnot. Other ones, one I've added sugar to, the other one not. This one I didn't add any sorbate to, and I just want to see how pressurized it gets. And then I'll stick it into the fridge, which will then help more of that CO2 dissolve, because otherwise it may explode and just foam out, which wouldn't be fun. But anyway, that's the final step of mead. Now it's time to go make some more. Thanks for watching.